introduce Cathy Moriarty.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming.
DJ Johnny Juice. Today we're going to talk about music supervision and how it music supervisors influence film, TV, and new technology. Cathy Moriarty has been influencing music and films for many, many years and decades. Cole, many great films. Some of my favorites, American Psycho, Super Troopers. DJ Johnny Juice as an engineer, producer, recording person, and just an all-around great musician. So today I'd like to start with
Wait, what about you?
What about him?
Where's Munger?
I just know them. He's the guy who knows. I've been involved in music supervision for many years. Mostly broadcast, a lot of broadcast, new technology, some films. That's why I thought it'd be great to have Barry on, because he's done a lot of films, some of my favorite films. And I thought it'd be interesting to have an actors' point of view, an engineer, DJ, recording artist, and a music supervisor, kind of tell the elements of how music supervision plays an important role in the movies, TV, and even new technology as things are changing. And that's why I want to actually ask Barry a couple questions here. I would like to start with you. Being throughout the years that you've seen the movies that you've worked on, from American Psycho to Super Troopers, how have you seen it change throughout the years to where we are now?
As much as it changes, it also stays the same. The beautiful marriage between music and picture has so many expansive varieties. The thing that always struck me was that Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond novels, he scouted all of the locations before writing the novels. So I always thought that a musical approach, where you would think of the music before actually writing the script, would be something that was very revolutionary. But the more I worked in film, I found that 20–30% of the time that actually does happen. And it's interesting because the audience only know the final product. So you see the music and the film married together, so you're not always sure what came first. But you are positive that when you see both together, the impact that they have.
That's very cool and interesting. And that's one of the things I think people probably came here to see, at least myself as an audience member, if I wanted to come here to see, was what actually goes on behind the scenes to get to the point where the audience actually does see the finished product of it. Which actually, I mean, seeing the change in the way you spoke about it, some of the new technology platforms and things that are coming out, how have you seen that kind of embrace films, music supervision, TV? Have you seen it change it? Obviously it's changing.
The major changes come with streaming. When I started music supervising, I was a DJ. I had crates of records that nobody else had. So I could watch a film and I could pull a piece of vinyl out and play a song that chances are nobody had heard before, and it would go very well, and then we would have a match. Now with the advent of streaming, everybody has access to everything.
True.
So crates are only as good as the person who puts them together.
Right.
So right now the focus seems to be more on curation. It's not a surprise that we see a number of radio DJs who are making the transition into music supervision, because we have directors and producers commuting, listening to the radio, saying, you know what, I really connect with the curated music that this DJ is putting together. Maybe they'd be interested in supervising my project.
Interesting.
Whereas from a film standpoint, if you're a film producer, you know that the job of a music supervisor entails more than just choosing music. There's a heavy legal negotiation and licensing component to it, which is essentially the business. And as most of us know, it's usually 10% show, 90% business.
Sure.
So once again, behind the scenes, we end up seeing new music supervisors on the playing field who don't necessarily have that experience, but a lot of them are gaining it fairly quickly. The one thing I can say over the past 20 to 25 years in music supervision, the license agreements don't change.
That's
The only thing that changes is the price.
Interesting. So then that leads me to Cathy. I would like to ask you, being throughout the years of all the great roles you've done, iconic films to get done, from Raging Bull to one of my favorite patty cakes. I mean, how have you seen, well, first off, how have you seen music supervision influence the roles? That's something.
I'm from the day where there were DJs. It wasn't just a playlist, really physical, like where it was a job. And now I look at some of these DJs that are making millions and millions of dollars that it's turned into this booming like industry. But I am on the mature side. So I've been around for a long time. When I first went out to California to do Raging Bull, I stayed at the Chateau Marmont, which was a really big music hotel. So I had Dave Sandsworn in the room next to me, Rick Marauder, one of the greatest drummers, upstairs, Hugh McCracken, and my all-time favorite, he's passed now, who was producing Dr. John's album, Tango in Paris, I think, and Ricky Lee Jones. How was I last night? It's like, you were great, because we go, Troubadour and the Roxy. And I never seen a man eat a whole roasted chicken in one bite and just pull out a bone. So I got introduced to music on a side note, and I was enthralled with it. Then I met Meatloaf, who introduced, he came up and he goes, Cathy. Yeah, hi. He goes, hi, I'm Meat. Hello, Mr. Loaf. You know, I mean, I don't know what you say. And then I went on because he went into acting to do numerous movies. But one encounter that I had with him, I had never even told you this. I was doing this movie, Crazy Alabama. It was Antonio Banderas' first time. He was very musically endeavored also. And him and Meatloaf singing opera, just at a kitchen table while we were having lunch. It was just magnificent. But then I'm gonna go back to my original thing. Now, I had done Raging Bull, worked on it for quite some time. I was 17 when I met them, 18 and 19 while I did the movie, 20 when it was about to come out. I did not know what ADR was, so anyway, Mr. Scorsese calls me and I go down and he's showing, and I was like, all right, I look okay. And he's like, all right, Cathy, when you hear the 3 beats, you have to lay this in. And I was like, well, whose voice is that? He said, that's yours. I said, oh no, because I do not sound like that. I sounded like a truck driver. That's what I sound like. Needless to say, I've accepted it now after 45 years. And I actually still sound just like that, don't I? But I'm watching some of the movie and I was like, well, I'm certainly not going to see this. This is boring. Once the music was put in, and that's going back to, was the music written before the movie? And Scorsese, of course, had in his mind what the music. I was, a brat. I was 20 years old, and I thought who I was. I was nobody. But when I saw the music with the movie is nothing without music. And I fell madly in love with music at a younger age. At 14, 15, I always hung out with older people. So Billy Joel Turnstiles, I still think was written just for me personally. I do. I'm going to keep that in my head because it was my time in my life, and I shouldn't even listen to that yet. But that was the timing of my life. Vienna Waits for You I thought was written for me, which it was. But anyway, the importance of music in film. I don't think there would be, even though there were silent films back in the day, music always came first.
You wrote a good point about that.
Yeah, and then through everything, music was such a key part of my life. But all different genres, even my children who were in their 20s, know all the old rock and roll and not real music. It is, to this day, real music. I don't understand some of the new stuff, and that's okay. Then recently, a couple years ago, I did this movie called Patty Cakes, where I play an old chain-smoking grandmother who's in a wheelchair who chain smokes and raps. We did the music before the movie. And I went down to Williamsburg to Brooklyn, and I was meeting with this gentleman, Jeremy Jasper, who wrote, directed, did all the music, everything. He just came from music videos. And he was like, Cat, just a beat, 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 give me a couple of beats, give me a hand. And I was like, give you what? He was highly insulted. But it was so important that this is where it comes in of the people thinking of music well before the movie. Because when you're performing in a movie and acting without the playback, we're lost. We're just complete idiots, you know? And then, so I laid down the tracks and I kind of got a little bit of a hang of it, you know? And then when it came time to do this scene 5 months later, all of a sudden they had put it all together in the playback. But the time, energy, creativity, and brilliance that goes into music. Growing up, one of my favorite movies, and this is after I had done Raging Bull, was The Rose. So, did the music come first? Obviously. It's like the chicken or the egg, you know? But that's like my take on music.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great stories, man.
Yeah.
Some I didn't even actually know about, so thank you for telling me. And I see you, Johnny G's Rosado. I'd like to ask you about, technology and things that are changing and the way that you've approached film and TV and scoring things and soundtracks. How have you seen things change throughout the years and with technology being a massive play in things, how is it helping you kind of move into taking your vision to the audience and making the audience more aware of where you're trying to get to? Like, what have you seen technology done and what are you using, and how's it helped you get to the point of where you are right now to create a good score and a great soundtrack for the projects that you've worked on?
That's a good question. Don't let my boyish good looks fool you. I'm in my 50s. So I started in the 80s. I started with a group called Public Enemy. When I was in high school, they were a little older than I was. They yanked me out of high school and they said, hey, you're gonna put you in front of all this stuff and figure it out. Yeah, now it ain't like now. It's a computer. Computers are easy to kind of correlate things. You know how to Control X on a PC. That works for anything, including the music programs and the audio and digital programs for video. Back in those days, none of that existed. So there was a whole bunch of things like a Mirage keyboard that you had to program in hexadecimal, which I taught myself, and things of that nature. And we had to go by feel. Something that's lacking now a lot of the new music because everything is overly quantized. Now, we had to sync everything up using Synthie timecode. Everybody knows what Synthie is, right? No. Who can name all, not you don't count. You do not count bones. What does Synthie stand for? Right. Timecode, right. And when you use music, what frame rate do you use? We use 30. It's not film and it's not video. We use 30. That's what we use in the music industry. Obviously, they don't use that for film. They don't use that for video either. But we use 30. Now we know when something's supposed to stop and when something's supposed to end. That's it. There is no, now with video editing programs and audio, you can just drag the video in. And I can work around it. And when one of your directors tells me, I cut out 2 seconds of this thing, you just ruined my whole composition because it was moving towards something. But now that movement, I can't just cut 2 seconds off. It's not going to end right. So now I can speed it up, but now it's going to affect how you view what's happening because the song sounds too fast for what's happening. So as somebody that scores movies, what I do is I try to make you feel what I think the scene is trying to make you feel. Everybody knows the sound effect for somebody getting killed, right? Oh man, that's it, right? I don't care what strings you use or piano, it's you know that, right? So I know it sounds weird. When I look through a scene, I mouth everything I want to do first. So I sit there and I'm like, no, he didn't do it. Oh, now it is, and I do all of that stuff like I'm watching a movie for the first time with all the stuff in it. Then I go back and I say, what can I play to make myself say that? And that's how I come up with my scores for the movies I do. Unless they're overly musical, like I did on The Shoulders of Giants for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, And that was specifically about the Harlem Renaissance and the first African-American basketball team. So obviously that was extremely jazz-oriented. You know, and I worked with Herbie Hancock and Whit Marsalis on that. And and thank you. We got nominated for a couple of NAACP Image Awards. We lost.
Still nominated.
We lost to Whitney Houston and to Michael Jackson. So we were not winning that category. How good the movie was. But the movie won Best Documentary. Great documentary. And again, you talk about curating. We couldn't, well, not that we couldn't, the budget was so low. Again, the music business part, they couldn't license the songs that they wanted to license. So they wanted to license this great jazz standard, couldn't do it. So I had to make a song that sounded like that jazz standard, had the feel of it, but obviously couldn't be it. I had to do that for a movie, a Christmas movie, like we couldn't use Jingle Bell Rock. But I could use Jingle Bells because that was public domain. So I made a happy boppy Jingle Bells that sounded kind of like Jingle Bells Rock, but since it's public domain, you'd have to get a license for it. So sometimes you have to work around the rules, but you have to somehow impart, not me necessarily, but you got to impart what the director wants. This is why people like Danny Elfman gets work. He has this quirky stuff from his Oingo Boingo days, and when you want that quirky thing, you get him. You know, you get that boom, 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 boom. Even Batman, boom, boom. I'm like, you make Batman sound like that? Who makes Batman sound like Pee Wee Herman? Danny Elfman. Right, but it worked for that because the vision for that particular movie was quirky and campy. And so, if you're going to be doing any kind of scoring, if you're going to work with any music supervisor, anything, you have to kind of really get into the mind of the director and understand what his vision is and try to reinforce it. Because that's really what I do.
That's great. Thanks. So let me ask you actually, Barry, too, it must be a good question for you, Barry, as well. As a music supervisor and you're working with many music supervisors, do you find it, maybe the audience would be interested in this, is how often is a composer or music supervisor put in the position where they have to go out and either re-record something or find something to replace that song because of the licensing issues and the prices of it and that. So is that something you guys run into quite often? I know I have constantly throughout the years, especially on broadcast stuff and new technology stuff. When I say new technology, I mean, you know, streaming platforms, everything, the devices. Sometimes you can't get the licenses for those things, or they just cost too much money for the broadcast, but you can get it for the actual technology and streaming platforms. I mean, do you guys, I know I've run into it, I'm just curious from your guys' point of view, do you run into that quite often? And how do you get around it when you do?
We run into it all the time. In my interpretation, music supervision is about working with a director to help translate the vision into music. And then you're working with a producer to make sure that that vision fits into a budget and a schedule.
That's the tricky part.
And that's where the triangulation starts to happen. A lot of directors, producers, their knowledge of music is generally pretty popular in terms of what they heard on television or what they heard in another TV show or on the radio or from their children.
Right.
And, you know, 80% of the music that we hear on television or on the radio is owned by major labels, major publishers.
Or private people too, for that matter, like Michael Jackson owns Happy Birthday. That's why nobody hears Happy Birthday too often anymore because it costs too much money. I was doing a movie and they were humming Fly Me to the Moon. They're like, stop right there because it's an extra $2,000 for every 8 bars, you know.
I mean, so being budget conscious, you want to make sure that you arrive at the mix stage with everything cleared and on budget. But if the director wants something that's unaffordable, then it's the music supervisor's job not just to find something that sounds like it, but to really dissect the song. You know, what are the elements of the song? What are those elements making you feel? What are they adding to the picture? And I believe that's where the music supervisor's job really gets interesting.
Yeah.
It's almost like breaking a song down into its multi-tracks or its stems. You're really getting into the minutia of what makes a song function, what makes a song make the audience feel the way that it does. And once you're able to dissect those elements, take a step back and look at them, then you can reapproach them in terms of what are the priorities, what points do we want to hit, and what instrumentation, what artists are we going to use to evoke those feelings. And how are we going to do that in a framework that's going to meet our budget and our schedule?
That's why I would have a job without that. Like, y'all see Pulp Fiction? Remember, what's his name? The Wolf, Winston Wolf?
Yeah, that's what.
That's me, clean fix things. So, I'm known pretty much in the industry as the guy when you have that kind of a problem. We can't license, change is gonna come because it's $75,000 to use this thing. What do we use? Okay, well, we can't use too much of that, of anything in that realm, that stack stuff, so just can you recreate something like that? Well, I'll be ready. How long you got? You got a week. We'll be ready in a day. I'm that dude. And those kind of people are the ones that are useful in this business. When I did Ali Rap, I scored Ali Rap for ESPN. I got the job because the dude that was supposed to do it didn't return the call fast enough.
It happens all the time.
He was there. I did the theme to it. But then the next day I got an email from ESPN saying, can you score? I'm like, yeah, why? He said, well, I got an hour-long special needs to be scored. I'm like, when? They said, yesterday. I said, you have any visuals for me to look at? They said, no. I had to score to a cue sheet. 2 months later, I was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Music Composition for album. You were there, you did your job. So, a lot of times it's not how good you are, it's how fast you can do it. So, there's the three things. You can do either good, fast, or cheap. And one of them is you can't do all three. They lied. I can do all three. But I won't do it for cheap.
It also be having good workable personalities for it too. At the degree that I've seen people lose jobs because they've had problems with directors or situations like that, and bringing people at last minute that are easy to work with. One of the things I actually wanted to ask you guys about too is something I think about a lot. When you get a music supervision job coming to play, they show me the budget. When you see the budget and they say, yeah, we need to be able to work around this. We need these songs. I start to think, I wonder if you guys do the same thing where, okay, what's my backup plan? What can I get to replace this song if this is going to be bumped out? Or it's going to be way too expensive. It's going to create a licensing issue on a different platform here. I'm always trying to think of a backup plan. Either re-records or re-record because then you don't have to pay for masters on those. But thinking of alternative, I'm all about independent young artists and giving them a platform. If it is, I really am about that. I truly am about that. I literally go out to look for independent bands all the time just because I love music. I'll go to Washington Square Park on Saturday or Thompson Square Park and watch bands. I'm always looking for something because you never know where it's going to come from. If it comes from that area and it's good, it's going to be great. And I'm always thinking about backup plans. So I guess quickly, do you guys think like that too? Are you guys having alternative plans for stuff? Like when you get a budget and stuff and music brought to you, and you see the budget, you see the licensing plans, and you kind of have that in here?
I refuse to give up that time that I call my time on a project. And usually that's when the scope is as wide as possible. So that's the first phone call. You're watching it. And then it is my record trade. It is my record collection. It is the bands that I know that I'm not sure the director or producer knows. Those are the things that I want to introduce. Now, most of those things I can triangulate being on budget or within a ballpark. But music supervision has always worked on a case of scenarios. scenario A, scenario B, scenario C.
Yeah.
And scenario A is short, it's exactly what we want. Scenario B is, well, if we can't quite get what we want, this is going to be all right. And scenario C is, we're mixing tomorrow,
Yeah.
and we're out of money.
Yeah.
And this is what is going to get us from point A to point B, even though it might not be the optimal song.
Cool.
So,
And I think also that's where like creativity comes in completely. I mean, when you think of Rocky, the movie Rocky, okay, what's the first thing you remember? The music, the song. You know, you really just really remember this, but I'm going back a long, long time ago when MTV first started with videos. I didn't know I was on the fence if I thought it was wrong or if it was right, because music is so personal. I have my own personal vision of someone's creation. And then I was like, but that's not how I picture that song when they bring it to life. So I was kind of just so on the fence. But that's how far back all of it goes, where bringing music is what brings everything to life. You know, whether it be movies, TVs, like standing on a street corner. That's what hooks you. That's what it's about.
You know, you mentioned technology. This is where this works in the music supervisor's favor. Our catalog is owned by Universal. We were approached by, remember movie Jarhead?
Yeah,
They wanted to use Fight the Power.
Yeah, I was gonna talk to you about that, actually.
I remade that song from scratch.
Yeah.
And had Chuck redo his vocals, and we gave them that master.
That was the most iconic part of that movie, was at the end, right? The end of the film, when the war was just ending and they were all...
Yep, exactly. But we did that multiple times. Hot Tub Time Machine. They said, we want to use Louder Than a Bomb. Juice, remake the song, please. Remade it literally inch by inch, exactly the same way. You couldn't tell, and you're a fan of the group. Exactly. So, and Chuck was about 25 years old, so I had to pitch his voice up and everything. But again, technology, right? So, now Chuck sounds like an old grandmother smoking cigarettes. And I had to, before he was like, fight the power, and I was like, fight the power. I got to turn you up. So, the fact that the technology allows me immediately to go back and redo that. Yeah. I mean, I can't find the SP 1200 discs, floppy discs that we used for that were done in '87. Wow. But it doesn't matter. I remember every song I used for that. And in a lot of cases, I didn't sample. Like the Louder Than a Bomb, there was no samples on the Hot Tub Time Machine version. Right.
so you recreated
I
the master.
I remade the masters and the samples, right. So the sample, which was Who's Gonna Take the Weight by Cool Again, and the drums were Catch a Groove by Juice. I replayed the drums. I put a mic up against the speaker. I played the jam, and then I sampled that. And then I added cue noise from an old record. So it sounds like it was a sample. And then I took the Who's Gonna Take the Weight. I had my boy Dennis play that. And then I took a little piece, I moved it up. Bass, it's just one long bass note. And then I did all the scratches myself. And I did the same thing for the Terradome for the Samsung commercial for LeBron James. Matter of fact, the part that goes, this is a journey into South from Cold Cut, I did a fake English accent, and now I get SAG royalties for it because now I am now a voice performer. So every time that commercial plays, I get SAG royalties as well as the regular royalties, and they never had to go to Universal to get the licensing. So, and Prince was in the process of doing that for All of Purple Rain before that. So he knew the importance of owning your master. So you can go to Universal and they'll charge you $60,000. Come to us, baby. 25, man, cash. What's up? You know what I'm saying? So
Shop is open.
Real resource.
Exactly, and that made us real popular with a lot of music directors and music supervisors because they know that they have to get ripped off by the way.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it looks like we're gonna probably have to wrap up any minute now. So, any closing statements that you guys would like to throw out for maybe some inspiring music supervisors that are out there, people that are looking to get into film, TV, and technology and music, anything that you can kind of inspire the audience with, even with the final note out, closing with supervision and all. The way things are changing so fast, I feel like there's a lot of opportunities for music supervisors in the creative world, like you speak of. Like they're an artist on their own. I feel like that when I'm doing music supervision. I'm sure you do too, Barry, as well. We're all artists here, musicians, so I feel like that is just another element to our creativity. And I think it's important as music supervisors, when approaching jobs or getting new jobs, first getting into it, that you look at it in a creative aspect of it. Like if you were to sit down and play piano or sit down and play guitar, what are you going to try to bring to the audience, and how are you going to make them feel with the tools you have? And sometimes the tools you have are other artists. Until you get into the other side, which is the licensing and the business side of things. Any kind of last notes, questions, statements about that?
Last thing I'll say is that we're all in this room under the name of music.
Yeah.
And I do believe that creativity, creating is the antidote for what is going on in these days and times. So whether you create film, whether you create music, keep creating and join that medium with somebody else who's creating something else. Create combinations you may have never thought about before. There are no limits.
That's great. Yeah. Juice?
That was just so great. Give me a second to absorb that. I would say the one thing that made me become a DJ is because I figured out that I could control a whole room's emotion without saying a word. I can play a song and I can make you happy, I can make you sad, I can make you angry, I can make you horny, I can make you whatever I want to make you. I can make you that. And I don't have to get on a bike and say, throw your hands in the air. I can make your hands go in the air by playing the right song. If you can do that, then you're on your way to being a music producer, a music supervisor.
Cathy, can you draw out some inspiration here?
My inspiration, you are my inspiration.
Come on.
I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of this. This is such an honor and a privilege, and the message really is, don't be afraid to take a chance and show your creativity. Doesn't mean the whole world has to like it, but if it's something that you're proud of, and it's from you, it helps. Years ago, they used to have, up the street when I opened the first restaurant, it was 32 years ago. They had a little place where you made your own little cassette. I mean, I'm going way back where I still have 8 tracks. I know you people don't know what an 8-track is. Google it. Because we can do that now. Back in the day, it's not like we could just Google and get an answer. So music was my answer, so we'd go. And for my inspiration, it was always music. On the way to work, I liked to drive myself. And you'd make a list of whatever your songs were. Mine was some compilation. But they actually had a business where you went and you made this tape, and I actually still have my tape of what that was. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Keep creating. Creating is the most important part of it all, the process and the way it comes together. Thank you guys. Thank you guys very much for all this. Thank you for your time.